And we're back with yet another episode of Baking It Down, presented by the Waffle House Football League.
Of course, I'm your host, Hayden Tiemann, and before we dive into this week's matchup, we have to talk about the WHFL's first ever trade between the Washington Foreskins and Hot Chub Time Machine.
Friday morning, we saw Washington send away Jarvis Landry and Damian Harris for Chase Claypool and Marvin Jones. We'll have to wait and see how the new players serve their teams in the coming future.
And now that we got the basic rundown out of the way, let's see how each team did in another exciting week of football.
First up is our matchup between Washington and Denver. Now, Dak Prescott was just electrifying with 4 touchdowns and 27 points while just throwing 188 passing yards. But it would be 5 touchdowns and 33 points from the man I'm sure you're sick of me talking about that would lead Denver to victory. Final score, Denver 125, Washington 116.
And joining me in the booth is Chamber Gillette, manager of Raw Sauce. Chamber, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
I'm so glad to be on the show this week.
All right, and I'm going to cut you off because the next matchup happens to be your own.
Oh. This week, the driving force was Deebo Samuel with 156 yards and 2 touchdowns.
One key playmaker was Derrick Henry, who scored roughly 24 points.
Not to mention 157 yards and 1 TD.
This leaves us with a final score for Hot Chub Time Machine at 113 and Raw Sauce 147. Next up, we have the Belgian Wafflers versus Nub Nub Dynasty. The Wafflers' very own Terry McLaurin brought home 2 touchdowns and 27 points.
Star player for the Dynasty would be Ezekiel Elliott, who had 143 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, and just shy of 21 points.
But Elliott would not quite do enough, with the final score being Wafflers 96, Dynasty 90.
Alright, next up we have Matchless Team versus Waffle Stomp.
Now let's talk about Saquon Barkley, who had 27.5 points, thanks to a surprising 74 receiving yards and 2 total touchdowns.
Next up we have Tyreek Hill with an amazing 42 points, 3 receiving touchdowns, and a total of 186 yards. With a final score of Matchless Team scoring a total of 121.56 points and Waffle Stomp with 114.66.
Now it's time for our Waffle House matchup of the week, which has to be the number 7 seed Time Machine versus the 8 seed Dynasty.
Before we wrap things up, let's take a look at our standings. We can see Raw Sauce has taken down the previously undefeated Waffle Stomp. The Omelets stay where they are. Matchless Team has skyrocketed closer towards the top, and we have Nub Nub Dynasty still making its way down the chart and now currently in last place.
Alright, this concludes week 4 of Baking It Down. I'm your, special guest.
And I'm your host, and we'll see you next time.